On the fly, I found the guy's podcast email address, just like I told you. And I said, John, I found Joe's podcast and it is awesome. Are you looking for interesting guests for Joe's podcast? I found your show. It's awesome. Are you looking for interesting guests? If so, what are the next steps? I got a reply back, hey, Mischa, we're always looking for interesting guests. Here's what we need you to do. Keep it simple, right?
It's one thing to show up. Okay, I know I need to shoot a video today for social. You show up, you're by yourself. Here's the topic. Okay, start talking, and you're talking to the camera or whatever. There's a different energy there than when Mischa asks me a question and I start just getting excited. He's nodding his head, he's smiling. I'm in the room with him. When somebody watches those videos side by side, the one where I'm by myself and then the one where I've been asked a question, there is just a different feeling there.
Anybody listening who's in the video production business, you should be frothing right now and going, I need to be guest speaking on podcasts, building those relationships, accessing other people's lists.
In today's episode, you will discover how to turn podcast guest experiences into real business opportunities without needing a fancy media kit, professional headshots, a funnel, all the things. We talk about why being a podcast guest can be way more valuable than hosting your own show, and the 7 key benefits that most people miss. And then finally, we go over the dead simple email template that can land you on top podcasts in your target market. All that and so much more in today's episode. What's up, friend? Hey, I am chatting with my new friend, Mischa, the Chief Influence Officer of the Influence Army, who breaks down exactly how to leverage podcast guesting to grow your video business. Whether you're just getting started or looking to level up your marketing game this year, you're gonna love his practical approach. Before we jump in, if you're new here or if you've been around a while, I have a brand new workshop that I would love for you to check out that will help you in your business, help you get some clarity on what you should be focusing on, and hopefully give you some new ways that you can market, how to sell bigger packages, and be more successful in your video business this year. You can go to studiosherpas.com/10xfilmmaker and get access to this free workshop. Would love for you to jump in and benefit from my 20 years of video production, running a video production company, having a team and a studio, and doing brand videos and the whole 9 yards. The whole 9 yards? The whole 10 yards? Why isn't it the whole 10 yards? I played football and I don't think that's the phrase, the whole 9 yards. Maybe it's a different sport. Anyway, check it out, 10X Filmmaker. It's studiosherpas.com/10X Filmmaker. And if you're interested in learning more about the 10X Filmmaker community, you'll get all that information when you head over to that page and opt into that free workshop. With that, let's jump into today's episode.
What's up, friends? Welcome to another episode of the show. Today with me is Mischa Zvegintzov, who is the Chief Influence Officer of the Influence Army. Mischa, dude, I'm super excited. We're already having some fun, but I'm so glad that we're together today. Thanks for being here.
Ryan, thank you for having me on the show and sharing your audience with me. What a gift for me.
My pleasure, and you've come highly recommended, I think. I actually didn't ask you that. I mentioned that. I'm like, yeah, I forget how, but we're here. I love the work that you're doing. The thing that you are going to be sharing today. I'm just like, man, this is, I think, the perfect topic. It's kind of, I think, really good timing as people are thinking through, how do I show up to my ideal clients this year? And I think our topic is going to hit home. So just give us a little backstory. How did you get into the world of podcasting and start believing that this was a medium that you should be telling other video business owners, or not just video, but business owners, that there's something to this that you should consider?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So just really quick, I had about a 25 years sales career. I was very successful, the bulk of it, 15, 20 years of it in home loans. So through the ups and downs of the home loan debacle, if anybody knows about that. But I went through a divorce, more failed relationships. Both my parents died super quick within like a couple of weeks of each other. Yeah, this was back in...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was so heavy, such a heavy time. But it kind of spurred a midlife crisis for me. I was a stay-at-home dad, and existential crisis like, what am I doing with my life? Had
Oh my
money in the
gosh.
bank and just, got source, God, higher power, whatever, was like, hey man, you need to quit your career and be a stay-at-home dad. Get your boys through school, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'll never forget the day I went into my boss. This was like 2015-ish. Went to quit.
Wow.
I went in and quit. And he's like, Mischa, we'll match whatever offer you're getting out there.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm retiring to get my boys through school. And he stone cold looked at me and said, Mischa, I wish I could quit too. He was just like,
wow.
yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm doing the right thing, right?
Wow.
Fast forward 5 years. I don't know, this is 2020-ish. Boys are graduated, have their jobs, going off to college, have their girlfriends. And I always knew, because I love sales, I love marketing, I love entrepreneurship, that I would, reemerge in the space. So I thought, hey, I'm going to master online marketing naively, right? I was old school. So I was telemarketer, made millions of phone calls, send flyers out to get the phones to ring. But I was like, I'm going to do webinars and blah, blah, blah. And fall into Russell Brunson's ecosystem, if you know who Russell Brunson is, right? Wrote a check ClickFunnels, wrote a check for $25,000. And I was in his high-end masterminds for a few years. I'm still in some of his stuff that I pay for. The constant message that he says is, before you start spending money on ads, do your dream 100, which is like find the 100 people that you want to partner with, and prefer in a perfect world, we'd do 500 people, right? And he's like, go speak on their podcast, go speak on their podcast, go speak on their podcasts, right? And so I ignored that for a bit. And then I finally had this moment where I was getting customer video testimonials for people. And I know you have your Enroll films, your testimonial capture checklist. I was checking that out. Super cool. Yeah, I'm literally getting flown around to interview people and get their customer testimonials, and getting flown to events. And I got flown to Ireland to this mastermind to interview these, Shelley Jorgensen was her name, to interview all her clients and et cetera. And two things happen. One, I wake up to an email from Stacy Oliver, who is a customer of mine. She's like, you're the one who moves the needle in my business. I pay all these other people, and you're the only one who drives revenue for me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm actually like helping people financially. Right. I was like, wait a minute. At the exact same time, for a few months, my friend Ryan Lipsey, who has the Small Business Spotlight, had been harassing me to be on his show. He's a realtor, big realtor audience, right? And he's like, hey, my realtors need to know how to get their customer video testimonials, how to repurpose that content, because realtors are constantly starving for that social media content. So I had capitulated, or said yes. And so the day that I was on the show was the day after I got that email. So I speak on his show. I talk about what at the time was my perfect video testimonial system, my 5-step system for getting your customers to gladly do your selling for you. And I get this flood of engagement. It was crazy. And I had the crappiest little login Gmail opt-in.
Of course.
Code, right? Of course.
Yep,
And now it's all way too complex. I'm like, sometimes I remember, I'm like, oh yeah, I can just do a stupid little form. Like, anyway, I crush it. And I had this thought of like, oh my God, I need to go on a podcast tour. Like what Russell had been telling me for so long, what he still says today. I was literally on a training the other day. It's the same message from him. Like, you gotta be putting your message out there on podcasts, testing your material, driving those relationships. And then once you have all that mastered, then start spending some money on ads, things like that. But anyway, I did really quick. Next thing that happened was I was like, I'm going on a podcast tour, do a Facebook post, and I say, hey, everybody, I'm going to go on a podcast tour. I'm going to teach people how to get their customer video testimonials, but I'm going to bring all my old school sales tactics in to do this. So I'm going to build the templates, the email swipes, how to get on them, how to find them, systemize that process, which are my gifts. And I said, I'm going to be creating this stuff. Who wants it? And I got this flood of engagement. It was about 1.5 years, 2 years ago by now. Everybody was like, me, 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 me. And I was like, oh my God, people need help doing this. And there you go. That was a very long answer to your short question.
I love it. And that's all we have time for today, folks. I'm just kidding.
See ya.
How funny would that be? You're like, oh, okay, wow. Just one question. And then we did. I will say a fun story. We did this legacy video for a client of ours' father. Her father was 80 something years old. He was a United Nations ambassador to like oh man, I'm going to botch it. I'll just skip that part. Anyway, fascinating gentleman. Had met, multiple popes, traveled all over the world. And we sit down. It's like 8:30 in the morning. Cameras rolling. I'm sitting across from him. And I'm like, all right, so, I don't know, just tell me your story. I asked that one question. This is not an exaggeration. 4 hours later, I mean, he was like story after story after story. So I think his daughter kind of prepped him with like, hey, they're going to ask you your story. So I think he, in his mind, thought that he had to lead the thing or something. But every story was super interesting. He's an older gentleman, so I didn't want to interrupt him. I just was like, when is he gonna like take a breath or take a sip of water? That was like one of the, and it was all so interesting. So I did not get my second question in until after lunchtime, which was just fascinating. So,
oh my God, that's incredible.
There you go. So my hope is for the person listening, the filmmaker or business owner that's listening. It's like, well, why would I? I've never thought about being on a podcast. I thought about, starting my own podcast. Like, Ryan's got this show. I know, Ryan used to have a show where he would, like for his corporate video company. I think he has a new one, in his production business. So maybe that's what I should do is start a show, and then I can have guests on and I can network with those people. I will say personal experience. When I did that, it didn't work how I wanted it to work. I landed some incredible people that were really hard. Like, how in the world did I land those people? My goal and hope was that they were going to be like, oh, this guy's really nice. We should do video with him. It literally never worked. Out of 20, 40, I think like 60 episodes of 3 different shows, 0 work that came from those. This show, I'm still like, my ideal client is not here. This show is for filmmakers, whatever. But going on a podcast tour and showing up and sharing for this person's audience, serving their audience, being exposed to brand new people who've never met you and letting them hear your spiel, that is incredible and moves the needle so much more. Mischa and I were talking about this before I hit record. If you're going to start a show, it's going to take a long time for that to kind of create any momentum. Unless your show is super niche, and I actually have a mastermind call with Steve right after this. He's got a super niched audience. He started a show like 2 months ago, and he's landing these podcast interviews with very specific people that make decisions in marketing for his niche. And so those literally are the people that are like, hey, we should talk about working together. But unless you have an incredibly narrowed niche in a focus that's around video marketing or a cousin of that, it's going to be really, really hard for you to turn that into something, from my opinion and experience, that generates revenue. And I would just love to hear your thoughts on that, Mischa.
Yeah, great. That's such a great point, Ryan. And I would tell you this too. I listen to podcasts that are hyper focused like that. I wish I could remember the lady's name right now. It's like How to Monetize Your Podcast or something like that, right? And it's clearly top of funnel, designed to drive sales for what they're doing. And I don't think that's bad. I think that's great. Sometimes I think, boy, I wish I could do that. But I have no interest in that, honestly. I like the broader stories, these kind of conversations. And so for me, what has been the most successful and fun is going and speaking on other people's shows like yours, right? And so quick, I'll just run through the 7 benefits, and you can interrupt me and ask a question anytime along the way. But the first obvious benefit that everybody thinks of is the call to action, the audience clicking on your call to action. So inevitably the host says, hey, where can my audience find you? Or if you're like me, you find a time to sneak it in. Like I always tell people, you can go to guestingguide.com, get my free downloadable podcast guest speaking guide on how to execute a profitable and successful podcast tour, right? So call to action, to me, that's what most people think about first, but it might actually be the least revenue generator. It's great to get people on the list, but in reality, most podcasts that we're speaking on, the audiences might not be that robust. Like in reality, we're not speaking on Joe Rogan's podcast where he's got millions of listeners. If I was to get on Joe's show, he would actually charge me, I believe the fee is like $75,000 now or something like that. It's crazy. I don't have $75,000.
Well, yeah.
But anyway, there's the call to action, right? Which is super fun. The host will sometimes direct recommend you to somebody. That's number 2. So I spoke on Monica Kremendall's stage. Monica recommends me to Payman Lorenzo. I speak on his Leaders with a Heart podcast. He's like, this is awesome what you're teaching. I want to join your thing. He joins my thing. So the host will direct recommend you to somebody. That's number 2. And then I said, the host will actually use you, right? So they will, Payman joins my thing. I cold pitched Alan Lomax in his Real Estate Investing Abundance podcast. He changed the name, but at the time, that's what it was. And it was literally, I'll give you the pitch at the end, or at some point you can ask me what it is. I have the most simplest pitch in the world. I said, hey, I want to speak on your show. I can serve your audience. He replies back, yeah, I'd love to have you on my show. This is the key thing. Realistically, anybody letting you on their show has an interest in what you're doing. So great chance they might want to go deeper with you on it. So Alan, this was a year and a half ago, I spoke on his show and he joined my influence army, right? So that's super fun. Number 4 is the collaboration opportunities. So a question I often get from people who want to join my influence army is, well, how fast can I start earning my money? You know, right? Or what's the ROI? That might be a
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're strictly going by the call to action, it's a long slog because you told me before we started, hey, guess what? I'm going to do this at the beginning of December. That's when this is going to go live. And if I'm dependent on that call to action to drive revenue for me, well, there's already a couple month delay there, right? So what I tell people is it depends on the question you're asking the host at the end. So I asked you before we started, I said, hey, are we going to have a few minutes at the end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so I already know by what you do, I'd love to have you on my show. So I think we have a great collaboration. Yeah, let's go. So there's a great collaboration opportunity there. But what I ask at the end are things like, hey, do you have an email list? So Ryan, do you have an email list?
I do.
Awesome.
I do.
Fantastic. I actually teach a masterclass on how to guest speak on podcasts, not only what to say and when to say it, but how to get on them, how to find them, things like that. Would that serve your email list or your audience?
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. You want to do a collaboration?
Of course. I'm on the spot, so I'm like, saying,
well, you could say no.
Totally.
You might go, yeah, but now you put me on the spot. No, you might have more questions. So like my masterclass leads to sales. I do have an affiliate opportunity. So it might truly actually be of interest to you. Yes, at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I am interested. I'm just having fun. Too much fun, probably.
Yeah, no, but you get it, right? So right there, my next masterclass, if I have it scheduled, most of the time I do. Most of the time I'm speaking on podcasts, I've got my next masterclass scheduled. So I could literally start monetizing right away. I've already got the swipes written, all that kind of stuff. So you can easily share it with your audience. But so Alan Lomax, who I spoke in his podcast, he joined my thing. He's emailed his email list my masterclass a couple of times, and people have joined, and it's super cool. It's win-win for everybody. It's all, I can make it sound a little salesy, but truly it's adding value. Like, yeah, I have more examples of that, but that's a quick example. I actually have, my favorite one is Troy Truen. I can't remember the name of his podcast, but I said, hey man, I'd love to speak on your podcast. He said, I'm only interviewing women right now because he's trying to get back to 50-50 right? And I was like, hey, totally get it. Well, would you like to be on my show? He said yes. And so he spoke on my show. And then I told him about my master class. And so he didn't even speak on my podcast. I mean, I didn't even speak on his podcast, and he still emailed his list, right? So anybody listening who's in the video production business, like, you should be frothing right now and going, I need to be guest speaking on podcasts, building those relationships, accessing other people's lists. What do we call it? Other people's audiences, right? Mm-hmm. What else? We've got the repurposing of these interviews. So another thing I'll ask at the end is say, hey, can I get the Riverside link to this? We're recording on Riverside. Mm-hmm. And realistically, you'll say, hey, yeah, I'll give you the raw video. The other thing is, if you don't give me the raw video, you already said it's going to be on videos, so I can go find it on YouTube and just use the YouTube downloader and get it that way, right? Mm-hmm. So now I have a love-hate relationship with social media, and do you?
Yeah, me too. I'm with you.
Absolutely. So the great thing about interviews is being able to repurpose that content. And now there's so many tricks. Like, I create the reels. You can take the little transcript from the reel and put it in ChatGPT and say, make this the awesome LinkedIn post. And, it's just like, and then you can schedule. I use opus.pro, and you can schedule right from there. It's awesome. So we can streamline that process and really detach from the social media. There's branding. There's number 6. That as seen on list is so powerful for me. I'm always on shows. Yeah, right? And then there's the thought leadership aspect of it. So when I was first starting pitching people to guest speak on shows, I'm good at the pitch because I've been in sales forever. So I'm staring at this email I sent to this lady, Red Slice. Her name's Maria. I said, hey, I want to be in your show. I added value. Hey, I'm going to add value. I want to be on your show. She says, hey, I love your pitch, but when I went to your site, I see you're not a thought leader. Am I missing something? So fast forward now where I have my as seen on. So I sent a pitch to somebody the other day and they replied back, hey, thanks for reaching out. We're always eager to connect with thought leaders like yourself, right? And so now I'm like, well, what's the other way to be a thought leader? Go write a book. I'm not writing a book any day soon. And then there's, of course, the SEO is number 7. So there you go. Those are the key. We can go deep on SEO. I don't know if your audience knows about that. Or it's search engine optimization. You're more searchable. We're building a lasting body of content. Right?
Yeah. I feel like one of my favorite parts about guesting is getting exposed to other audiences. But then, like you had mentioned, I mean, if it's like a Zoom or a StreamYard or something like that, I'm going to hop onto their platform. I'm also going to open up another web browser, or I guess in this case, I can open up the Riverside app and hit record. That just records me. And then the host, asks me these softball questions that makes me look like a rock star. And then when that interview is over, it might be like in this case, this probably isn't going out for like 2 months. But when I'm done guessing on that interview, I hit stop on Riverside and I've got all of these amazing, thoughtful things that I just said. Well, maybe like one thoughtful thing, but I can take that and immediately put that onto LinkedIn or wherever. And it's just me saying a smart thing on a podcast and it's good content. So that's like one of my favorite little tricks.
I love that. Because continue on. I'm just soaking it. I'm always
well.
learning,
I was just gonna say, like, it's one thing to like show up. Okay, I know I need to shoot a video today for social. I don't want to. I'm not gonna do it. You show up. It's just you're by yourself. Here's the topic. Okay, start talking, and you're talking to the camera or whatever. There's a different energy there than when Mischa asks me a question and I start just like getting excited. He's nodding his head. He's smiling. I'm in the room with him. When somebody watches those videos side by side, the one where I'm by myself and then the one where I've been asked the question, there is just a different feeling there. So like people like the feeling of like, wow, this feels like way more natural and way more like, I'm sitting at the table with them. So anyway, I'm getting a little excited. I think I just had a coffee a little bit ago too. So
Brian, I love that. Let me ask you. So you're in effect saying, so I should have said, hey, let me record this. And I'm new to the Riverside desktop app, so I don't even see the record button. But
well, what's beautiful about Riverside is there is a whole, like, if the host of the show is using a platform like Riverside, there is the what do you call it? Like a separate track.
Yes.
So there's your video track, there's my video track.
Yes.
So that host could send you that track. So if you ask me, hey, Ryan, after the show, can you send me my just the track of me? I'll say, yeah, you can have the track. I mean, it would just send you a link and then you can download your track and then you can do the videos today on your own.
I love it. And then you're saying, hey, just get your hands on the track that is just you, and the parts where you yourself say something smart, just turn that into the clip. And it's better than usual because you're more animated. And
totally.
Yeah, love it. It's good.
For the video business owner that's sitting here thinking, and I know, like, I want them to get access to your stuff, and I'll give you a space to do that at the end, like you suggested. For the video business owner that's like, okay, like, I'm going to show up on a show, like, what the heck, what do I talk about? And then am I just saying, like, okay, and if you need video, here's our phone number and here's our website, call me. What would you recommend for that person that's never done this, that doesn't have funnels built up, that doesn't have lead magnets, that doesn't have, the things that you and I have spent years building and doing? What should that person be concerned about for the first or the next show that they're on?
I love it. I'm going to say this. Most people, when they decide that they want to guest speak on podcasts, they start thinking, I need to have my bio. I need to have headshots. I need to have my one sheet. That's a term that's thrown around. I need all this stuff. I need to have my landing pages, all these things. It's like, no, you don't. All you need is an email address so you can request to be on somebody's show. And they'll literally reply back and tell you the next thing you need. Right? I'll give you an example, and this might be a long answer, but I'm going to do my best. Everybody get your pens ready who's listening or watching. Yeah. This is the simplest pitch in the world that I send. I just sent this pitch the other day to a podcast. I'm looking at it right now. If you hear a podcast, Tim Ferriss, the Tim Ferriss Show, right? You can go into Listen Notes. There's a program called Listen Notes. There's Chartable. There's others. You put that podcast name in there. You click on the button that says RSS feed. Every podcast has an RSS feed. You don't need to know what it is or anything, but once you get used to doing this, you hit RSS feed and you will see the host email in that RSS code. Ooh. It's embedded in there. Okay. So you know who Tim Ferriss is?
Yeah.
Okay. Go look up the Tim Ferriss Show. You don't need to do it right now, but his email's in there. It's crazy.
Love it.
Yeah. So anyway, now you've got the email address, right? Great. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, came across a new one. It was called The Hard Way. I was like, this is a great podcast. And I looked at it, it had like yours, 150 reviews, things like that. I was like, I might want to speak on this guy's show. On the fly, I said, I found the guy's podcast email address, just like I told you. And I said, John, I found Joe's The Hard Way with Joe DeSena podcast, and it is awesome. Are you looking for interesting guests for Joe's podcast? I found your show. It's awesome. Are you looking for interesting guests? Right. If so, what are the next steps? Right? I just sent this the other day, and I got a reply back, hey, Mischa, we're always looking for interesting guests. Here's what we need you to do. I was like, okay, keep it simple, right? Like, I didn't have a bio. I didn't suggest a topic. I didn't have pictures, right? They will tell you the next step that you need to do. So that's that. If you don't have a landing page like guesting guide or something cool like that, I say pick the one place that you hang out the most. So if you, I currently like LinkedIn. So if someone says, where can my audience find you? Just tell them that one social place.
Yep. Don't
tell them all. Just say, find me on LinkedIn, bam. And then if you have are at other places, the people will find you. Okay. So that's number 2. Then it's the stories. Okay. So I have what's called my story bank, get your stories together worksheet. So you expertly know what to say and when to say it to inspire the audience to action. Basically what this framework is, or this worksheet is just start inventorying your stories. So pick out the 3 or 4 key story arcs of your life, I already talked about a couple of them, right? My old sales days, the death, divorce, rebirth, the death, divorce years, and then rebirth in the online marketing, right?
Yeah.
3 story arcs. Within those story arcs, you just inventory who I know you teach people how to tell stories too. So if you're like, this is stupid, or I'm not trying to.
This is great, man.
Yeah, okay, good.
Great.
Within the story arcs, I have my stories, the impactful people stories. So who has inspired me? You heard me mention Russell Brunson a few times, and then my customer stories. And so you heard me talk about Alan, about Troy, about whoever. If people are like, well, I'm kind of new, I don't have any customer stories yet. Well, who have you impacted in your life? If you have kids, you've impacted them somewhere along the way. Mothers, brothers, sisters, coworkers. You know what I'm saying? And when I inventory those stories, I just put down a word or two or a phrase. It's not like we need to write out the whole story. Just take a few minutes, inventory your stories, start speaking on shows, and the right stuff will instantly come up, and you're going to be amazed. You're going to go, oh my God, where'd that come from? Anyway.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. I think I say this, it's easier said than done because I'm a perfectionist at the worst. I used to be, not nearly as bad as I used to be. So it's very difficult, especially in this space where we work hard at trying to make everything beautiful and perfect, and it's going to be seen by the world. So if we know that we're going to be seen by the world, we want to show up as our best selves, and we think that, okay, I'm going to get professional headshots, and I got to have, something, I was thinking about creating a course or, having some kind of a download. It's like, no, just stop, start adding value on somebody's show, get a little bit more comfortable, and don't wait because you have something that can be helpful for others. And don't think of it as you're leaving money on the table. What you're doing is you're showing up and you're bringing that value and you're helping somebody along the way. The right people will follow up with you, will connect with you. And then if you find that you really enjoy guesting, it's like, well, shoot, then build a guesting webpage, landing page, build some kind of a lead magnet or build a funnel of some sort. Take those deeper steps if you really feel like you're excited about this and this is a strategy that you want to do, but don't spend all that time, energy, effort building all that stuff only to find out that you don't like guesting and you're like, wow, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be and whatever. So Mischa, this has been super good. What's like the biggest, bestest final tip or inspiration that you can share with our friend today?
I'm going to continue with the theme of messy action. Take the messy action. Take the messy action. I've spent $100 and some thousand in Russell Brunson's stuff, right? And I was in there and I've seen him blow it so many times. And when I say blow it, he's like, here's your course. And he starts teaching a course and he'll totally miss step 3. And I'm like, what? Like, he is the master of messy action.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He's so good at what he does, but he just clearly takes the messy action and constantly is putting himself out there. And I like to say, this is a mantra for me, the best is the enemy of more than good enough. The best is the enemy of more than good enough. So I'm constantly like, just do it, press forward, take the action, test and try, learn.
Fail forward. You don't learn until you launch. Go ugly early. Done is better than perfect. All of those things. You guys, I started a YouTube channel just a few days ago. And I'm like still embarrassed to tell people about it because it's not perfect. I'm showing up, I'm shooting video on my phone. I'm shooting video of me on an Osmo. I'm doing things that, where I don't have the sweet 1.2 aperture lens and the perfect sound and light. I'm just doing it. And part of it's just an exercise in me practicing what I preach and hopefully empowering and encouraging other people to say like, oh, if Ryan's doing it, he's a filmmaker and he's showing up like this, I guess I probably could too. So that's part of my whole deal there. But Mischa, this has been so fun, man. Thank you for encouraging. I've taken notes that I didn't think I was going to take today I do. One of them is I need to revisit my Dream 100. And I don't know if I can do Dream 500, but I really want to do this exercise before the end of the year. And then even writing out, who has inspired me. I mean, I definitely have any success that I have today. It's because, I stand on the shoulders of lots of giants, and to just maybe make notes of more of those who those people are and what those stories are. But I need to do that. I just need to make some time to reflect and to think, and not as bragging, but say, here's how I help people, and for other people to be able to see them in those stories. So thank you for bringing all those things up. Where can people follow along with you? I know you've got a gift for our audience. So
Yes.
We'll call it that. How about that? Floor is yours.
Yeah, go to guestingguide.com. Go to guestingguide.com, give me your email address, and you will get my guide on how to launch and execute a successful podcast tour. It'll give you everything you need. Yeah, it's good. And then, of course, LinkedIn. You already heard me mention LinkedIn. Like, just Google Mischa Z or Mischa Zvegintzov, or search me on LinkedIn, and I'm hanging out there all the time. So
This is so great, man. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to do some more stuff together.
yeah, indeed, Ryan. It's been a ton of fun. Thank you.
All right, my friend, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I hope that you got some value out of this. And I'm curious, are you more or less likely to guest on a podcast after listening to this today? Would love for you to share that with me. You can do that in the comments section, or you can email me at ryan@studiosherpas.com. We'd love to hear from you. And hey, let's kick off this year by rating this show. If you haven't left feedback or rated the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, right now is a great time to do that. Take a screen grab of whatever you're on your device, if you're not sitting at your computer, so that it reminds you later to review the show. But I'm looking for some new, fresh reviews. Like, what do you think about the show? Even if you don't think it's 5 stars, you would be in the minority, but feedback is helpful, and I take that stuff to heart. So don't be too mean. I'm just kidding. Be as mean as you want. That's on you, though. Okay, seriously, follow us on the Instagram at Grow Your Video Business. I'm also at Ryan Coral. Hang out on LinkedIn. If you need anything, I'm here for you. Here's to an incredible year, and appreciate you. Appreciate you being here, and I hope that this was valuable for you today. That's all I've got. See you soon. Bye for now.